Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, they need to listen to their lawyers, and they need to resolve this case if possible.
Team Blake Lively may think they have the upper hand. Sources say she has no idea what's coming regarding her battle with Justin Baldoni.
A lot of people commented on them. They were not picked up by the press because they looked quite suspicious.
Lively and Ryan Reynolds have hired former CIA agents with a proven track record of lying to the public, gaslighting.
Leaked HR complaints that was circulated around last week. And
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds were living the dream. The Hollywood power couple had everything: fame, fortune, and the kind of adoration from the public that most could only envy. But that dream came crashing down in a spectacular fashion when they found themselves exposed in a legal battle that has turned into an absolute disaster. It all started with Blake's lawsuit. On paper, it seemed like a simple case, one that could be settled quietly, with no one really the wiser. But what followed was a chaotic legal circus that no one could have predicted. Blake, hoping to throw some legal jargon around and use her celebrity status to manipulate the situation, quickly learned that this wasn't a movie script, and things were about to spiral out of control. It was supposed to be a high-profile lawsuit, the kind where the media attention is heavy and the outcome is crucial for preserving reputations. But what Blake and her team didn't account for was the one thing that could have ruined their entire plan: credibility. The case was falling apart because, at the heart of it, it was nothing more than a PR stunt disguised as a legal battle. Blake thought she could walk into that courtroom, shed a few fake tears, and get sympathy from the jury. After all, wasn't she the beloved Hollywood actress, adored by millions? Surely, that would give her the upper hand. But Judge Lyman wasn't having any of it. He saw right through Blake's manipulative tactics, right through the fancy words and emotional displays. This wasn't a legitimate lawsuit. It was a calculated attempt to influence public opinion. And Judge Lyman was not about to let her get away with it. As the trial unfolded, things began to get even messier. A leaked audio recording of a conversation between industry power broker Ari Emanuel and another high-profile agent surfaced, and it was the smoking gun that Blake and Ryan surely did not expect. In this recording, Emanuel, one of the most influential figures in Hollywood, admitted that Justin Baldoni, the man at the center of Blake's allegations, had been blacklisted from projects. Not because of any guilt on his part, but because he was connected to the wrong people. And those wrong people were none other than Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. What was even more damning was the fact that Emanuel's comments proved
it's only to try to take back the narrative that Baldoni's team has done a very good job of, and perhaps
could get into it and just get completely obliterated, because lawsuits are not pleasant. But it sounds like you have grounds to file a lawsuit.
The reason they've done such a good job on the Baldoni's team is because they have more truth on their side than perhaps Blake Lively does.
That Hollywood's power structure wasn't just about talent, it was about connections. Blake and Ryan had the power to ruin a man's career, not because he was guilty of anything, but because he had the wrong friendships. The more the legal battle dragged on, the clearer it became that Blake's entire case was based on lies and manipulation. She had turned a personal dispute into a full-blown media war, and it was now backfiring in the most catastrophic way imaginable. To make matters worse for Blake, the Freakonomics podcast episode featuring this damning audio mysteriously disappeared. This was no ordinary podcast. It had featured the very conversation that could expose Hollywood's dirty dealings in full. And yet, it was nowhere to be found. Gone. Vanished. Some may call it a coincidence, but for those following this saga closely, it raised a lot of questions. How far were people willing to go to cover up the truth? Could the industry have that much power to make an entire podcast episode vanish without a trace? Despite all the attempts to bury the evidence, the audio found its way into the public sphere. And the damage it caused was irreversible. Blake's entire case, which had already been on shaky ground, now had the weight of Hollywood corruption attached to it. The legal documents weren't just about a defamation claim anymore. They were about how far some people would go to protect their own interests. It was no longer just a PR problem. It had turned into a full-scale legal and reputational disaster. Now, as if things couldn't get worse, Blake's team took things to a new level of desperation. They began pushing for an attorney's eyes-only, AO, protection order. This would have allowed them to hide crucial evidence from the public, and even from Justin Baldoni and the judge. Why? Because, in Blake's mind, the evidence was too personal and too damaging to be seen by anyone but her legal team. The request was a blatant attempt to manipulate the system and keep the truth buried. But Judge Lyman was having none of it. He shut it down immediately, making it clear that the law wasn't for sale and the court existed to serve the public, not celebrities trying to bury the truth. But Blake wasn't done. When Bribery failed and her attempt to hide evidence was thwarted, she turned to another Hollywood classic, playing the victim. Her team argued that releasing certain evidence could cause irreparable harm to her career. Really? Irreparable harm to Blake's career? She was the one orchestrating this mess, and yet now she wanted to pretend she was the victim of an unfair system? It was beyond absurd, but the damage had already been done. The legal experts who reviewed her case ripped it apart, showing how nothing in her lawsuit had any real legal merit. Blake's entire narrative from the very beginning was based on a string of lies and exaggerations. Her once impressive
Blake Lively's PR firm begging to be let go of the case. I think actually they may have the worst messages of all.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got on Baldoni's side, you have one of the most aggressive entertainment lawyers in Hollywood. On the other side,
Yeah, and you better hope that these HR complaints are genuine and credible. There's some credibility to them, because if we do learn...
you have very good lawyers in New York, and they are poised for battle. I don't think they're thinking right now at all about...
The legal team had made mistake after mistake, and now they were watching their case crumble under the weight of its own ridiculousness. In one final act of desperation, Blake and her PR team tried a new tactic. They fabricated fake witnesses. Yes, you heard that right. They rolled out 2 anonymous actresses who supposedly had similar experiences with Justin Baldoni. But there was a catch. They didn't name these actresses. There were no official documents, no evidence to support their claims, just the word of Blake's team, asking the public to trust them. The problem? Everyone knew these witnesses were made up. Real witnesses testify in court. They don't hide behind anonymity and whisper their stories through gossip blogs. Even the press wouldn't touch the story, refusing to publish the anonymous allegations. And just when things couldn't get any more ridiculous, Blake's team made an even stranger accusation. They tried to frame Justin Baldoni's kindness as a crime. Yes, you read that correctly. They actually accused him of being too nice. Apparently, when Baldoni encouraged his employees to sign off emails with so much love, that was somehow evidence of a toxic workplace. At this point, it seemed like Blake's legal team was grasping at straws, finding anything they could to try and undermine Baldoni's character. Helping the less fortunate? That was now a scandal, too. Baldoni had reportedly given clothes to homeless people and filmed it, helping those in need, and then documenting it, was now a crime, apparently. It was as if they had run out of legitimate complaints and started making up the most ridiculous accusations imaginable. As the case unfolded, it became clear to everyone that Blake Lively wasn't just losing this lawsuit. She was losing her career, her reputation, and any shred of credibility she had left. The more she tried to manipulate the media and twist the narrative in her favor, the more she exposed herself as a master of deception. She thought she could control the story, but in the end, she only controlled her own demise. But the real kicker? Ryan Reynolds, the man who had built his career on being Hollywood's lovable funny guy, was now linked to one of the most embarrassing and humiliating legal screw-ups in recent history. Blake had dragged him into this mess, and now his reputation was taking a hit as well.